Hey there, it's Paige here from the Impact Copywriter and the Sales Funnel Shop. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a simple freebie funnel automation, or if you're not familiar with the term freebie, then you'll be familiar with the term lead magnet. So a simple lead magnet funnel automation. You're going to be interested in, how to do this simple freebie funnel if you're planning to build your email list with lead magnets or freebies. Now, it doesn't matter if they're a PDF download or they're a video training or something else. So anything that you're offering for free to your list in exchange for an email address, and maybe some other information that you're going to send to them, using your email service provider using automation, then this video is going to be relevant for you. So before we dive in, let's look at the big picture so you understand where we are in the funnel. Because for a funnel, unless you're using kind of one of them all-in tool solutions, which I don't use because I haven't found one that's great yet, you're going to be using a few tools. So the automation is going to run in the back end in your email service provider, but you're also going to need a few other tools like landing pages. So this is typically what a freebie funnel looks like. You have a bunch of traffic coming from different sources, and you're sending that traffic to an opt-in page. Now, once a visitor lands on the opt-in page, they decide that, yes, I want this thing. They enter their email address, maybe their first name, and they, submit the form. Now, in the back end, your landing page creator should be integrated. The form should be integrated with your email service provider. So when they submit that form, that work is basically automated by the tools that you've connected together. They're going to be added to your list. So that email address, whatever other information that they've given you is going to be added to your list in your email service provider. And then they're going to be redirected to a thank you page. So you will need a landing page builder to build both your opt-in pages and your thank you pages. And you'll also need an email service provider, something like ActiveCampaign, which is what I use, or ConvertKit, MailChimp, something that supports automation, or an email service provider specifically that supports automation to do this part of the automation. So once someone is added to your list, then you can set up an automation like I'm going to show you in this video to start sending them emails. And you can do some other things, but at the most basic form of this funnel, you're going to be sending them emails. And that first email is simply a delivery email. So you're making sure that they're going to get the thing that they opted in for via email, just in case, you're not sending them directly to the thing itself, which is one of the strategies. You're just sending them to a thank you page, and then the email will actually give them the thing that they're looking for. Or if you are sending them to a thank you page that has a video training embedded, for example, then you can make sure that they get that link and they end up on that page with the email. Because I sign up for a lot of things and I'm busy and it's interrupted my day. So I don't necessarily look at the video training right away. I know that I'm going to get an email with the link later, and so that I follow up with myself via that email later in the day. So it is a good idea to send them an email regardless of what kind of thank you page strategy you're using. And then once you've sent them that email, then you can decide, well, maybe we're going to send them a welcome sequence to build some trust. Maybe we're going to funnel people who downloaded this thing into a webinar promotion sequence. You're going to send them, the next step's going to be a webinar if you're doing like a course, a bigger course funnel. So you can, of course, tack on actions to this funnel. So this is just kind of how they get on your list. And then once they've sent that email, then you can decide where do they go next. And that you'll usually trigger some other type of automation or send them into another type of sequence that has another type of goal. So that, in a nutshell, is what the freebie funnel does. It's a way to add people to your list by offering them something for free. And then, of course, very early in the trust building process, make sure that they get that thing that you offered them. And then, of course, how you write that email can also be a big trust builder. That's our simple freebie funnel in a nutshell. Now we're going to dive into what that looks like in practice. We're only going to deal with the part here, the email service provider automation part. So remember, you will need a landing page builder tool. So I use Elementor right now. I've used Divi in the past, and those are both WordPress plugins type of themes and plugins. But you can also use a tool like ClickFunnels, which I do like their landing page builder. You can use a tool like Lead Pages or Unbounce. Any kind of landing page builder tool that will integrate with your email service provider of choice is a good option here. So you want to make sure those are integrated, because you're going to need that information sent to your email service provider when someone opts in on that landing page. Before I show you how to build it in ActiveCampaign, I'm going to show you what like a real one looks like. So this is the automation for my Instant Email Ideas training. So it's a video training. It follows the exact same framework that we've sent here. It has an opt-in page. There's a thank you page with the video training embedded directly on the thank you page. And actually, I do have an extra step. So I do send people to a quick survey in between. But otherwise, it follows the same setup. So opt-in page to thank you page. They're added to the Instant Email Ideas list in my ActiveCampaign email service provider. And then once they're added to that list, I do a series of actions in the backend in ActiveCampaign, and they get that delivery email, and then we decide where they go next. So when you're building automations, you're going to need about 3 or 4 core things. You're going to first need a trigger. How does the automation know when to start? And in most instances, when you're building freebie funnels, you're going to set up an individual list for each freebie funnel. And when they opt into Instant Email Ideas, for example, you're going to add them to the Instant Email Ideas training list. And that is going to be your trigger. So when someone subscribes to that list, then the automation knows to start. The second core thing you're going to need is emails. So the emails that you're going to send to this contact once they enter this automation. So you can see here, I have the delivery email. Usually if you send an automation with multiple emails, you're going to need wait. Now, the reason you want to use kind of the wait option is because you don't want to send all the emails at once, right? So maybe you want to send 1 email per day or 1 email every 3 days or something like that. So in that case, you would use the wait here. And so I'm not using it in this automation because we only have 1 email, and we want it to send as soon as they opt in to the thing that they want. So it's immediate, so there's no wait action. But if you wanted a wait action, which in any automation that has multiple emails, you'll want wait actions. You can make it wait for example, 1 day before anything else happens. So that's what it would look like if you put it in between actions. Now I'm going to delete this because we don't need a wait action for this. All right, those are the core things that you'll see in most automations with multiple emails. Some things I also like to use are tags. So you can see here that when someone subscribes to the list for Instant Email Ideas, the training, the first thing that happens automatically in the back end is I add a tag. By adding tags to subscribers based on actions they take, I can send more personalized campaigns, promos, content to people who have shown some sort of interest in certain topics. So interest tags is just one way to use segmentation, but I use interest tags a lot with freebie funnels. So basically how it works is I say, when someone downloads this, what can I reasonably infer about them? So if they're downloading an instant or training on Instant Email Ideas or opting into that, then I can reasonably assume that they're interested in email marketing. Otherwise, they wouldn't need email ideas, right? So that's how I use segment tagging, and I use these kinds of tags in most of my freebie funnels. So the next thing that happens automatically, so there's really very little wait time here, a matter of seconds. It's going from this action to this action, as fast as it can. But the next thing that happens after it adds that tag, and the subscriber never sees any of that, that's only for my backend, is that it sends the delivery email. And you can see here that I've named it Instant Email Ideas Delivery Email. Very, very simple. And all we're doing is giving them the link. Let's see if I can pull this email up. All right, here you can see in this email, all I'm doing is giving them the link. It's got a bit of personality. I'm building up some desire for clicking on the link just in case they haven't watched the training yet, and they downloaded or they opted in and they were busy or whatnot, because I really want them to watch that training, because that training is going to help them build trust in my brand and help them kind of have mindset shifts, get some value for whatever I'm going to sell later on. So we really want them to watch the training. So we do need to make sure that we're communicating what the outcome or the benefit of watching that training is. So we're still selling something, even though this isn't a sales email per se, we're still selling them to watch the training. So that's something that you want to consider when you are building a simple freebie funnel or a lead magnet funnel for something you actually want them to consume. So I'll read it to you real quick. Hey, here's your link to the instant email ideas training. In the next seven-ish minutes, you're going to learn my quick and repeatable 3-step technique for finding loads of new email newsletter ideas on topics that subscribers will actually want to read. I'm an online business owner and a professional sales copywriter. That includes emails, so it's a technique I rely on all the time. And because I love getting stuff done fast, I can promise you it's quick, fluff-free, and to the point. Take a break, grab a coffee, and get yourself a bunch of new email ideas. So you can see here, I'm building on, some things that I know are going to be beneficial for the subscriber. So they're going to want instant email ideas. That is the whole point of the freebie, is to get email ideas fast. I'm making sure they understand that it's going to be the technique I'm going to show them is going to help them find ideas that subscribers will actually want to open and read. So that's another problem in email marketing, is that people send emails and subscribers don't open them. I'm also acknowledging that the training is fast. It's not a 30-minute training or a 1-hour training. These are busy business people running businesses. They don't have time to really sit down, interrupt their day and take an hour for a training. So I'm letting them know that it's only 7 minutes. So it'll be really, really quick. Another thing that I dropped in here was the wording about it being fluff-free and to the point, because I take a lot of trainings and I know that a lot of trainings are kind of useless. So you opt in, you're really excited, but they don't really give you anything useful. So I want to make sure that they understand, just in case that they've had that experience, also they understand it's going to be free of fluff and to the point. And that's it. That's a simple delivery email, promoting the training. I'm not really doing anything else. There's no next step here. It's just including the link twice and making sure that they understand why they should watch the training, overcoming some barriers that they might have to watching the training just based on what I know about my subscribers or my ideal buyers. All right. So once ActiveCampaign sends them that initial delivery email, so we have delivered on the promise that we made on the opt-in page that they're going to get this training for free. So the next step is I add them to my newsletter list. So I don't use the freebie lists for any other reason except for the automations, for making the automations easy and keeping everything nice and clean inside the backend. So for your general newsletters, when you're sending content, your weekly content videos and such, I use a general newsletter list for that. So it's kind of like my master list. I actually have 2 of those because I send content on 2 kind of different topics. One's for copy and funnels, which are very related, and one is for kind of business systems and operations. So I add them to those lists. And then the final thing to do is to end the automation. So currently I'm not sending these people through any other automation. But I could easily trigger them to go into another email automation. Maybe it's a welcome sequence, or maybe if I had like a webinar, for example, a larger training, then I could send them into a sequence designed to get them to sign up for that. But I would do that in a separate automation. So this is a mini micro funnel, and then I would send them into another micro funnel. So what happens at the end of this automation depends on what is the next step for them in the kind of the big picture of your business. I'm going to show you how to build this funnel in ActiveCampaign because it's what I use and what I prefer. The first thing we're going to want to do is to create an automation. So I'm in the automations area of my dashboard, and then I clicked create an automation here at the top, and that launches the automation builder. Now I almost always start from scratch, so that's what I'm going to choose here, and I'm going to continue. Okay, ActiveCampaign wants to prompt me to add a start trigger. I'm going to start without a trigger for now. So I usually add the trigger at the end, just in case for some reason the automation was active and I wasn't ready for it to be active. Even if it was published, if it didn't have a trigger, then no one would ever go into it. So starting safely. Okay, step number 2 is really easy. We're just going to name our automation. When naming your automation, make sure to name it something that's clear and descriptive of what the funnel's purpose is or what you're offering as that freebie for that funnel. So you can see in our original example, I named this the Instant Email Ideas Training Delivery Funnel. Very clear, just by looking at the name, I know exactly what this funnel is for. For our purposes here, I'm going to name this the Simple Freebie Funnel Demo because that's what it is for me. But make sure that you customize that name to match what you're going to be using this funnel for. The first thing I'm going to do is add an email because you will for sure need an email for this automation. Now, when you're starting a new automation, you don't have any email specifically in that automation, you're going to need to create a new one. Give that email a clear and descriptive name. I'm going to use something like simple freebie funnel delivery email. All right, now ActiveCampaign wants us to set up our email. I'm not going to go through this process right now because we're just demonstrating how to set up the automation. One thing I will mention though is that when you're using ActiveCampaign, when you're starting out, make sure you go ahead and set up your templates. So you can see I have 3 templates. The rest are kind of automatically populated by ActiveCampaign. I could go through and delete these if I wanted, but they're things ActiveCampaign has provided for you to start with if they're helpful. But I recommend going into the templates part of ActiveCampaign and setting up your own templates to reflect the kind of emails that you're going to be sending. So I have a really simple newsletter, 1 column, very little branding, and I believe it's now, I'm using this version 3 here, so I've renamed it here, and I'll show you what it looks like. Yeah, so this is what my typical looks like. It's just a bit of welcome dummy text, I guess, with the logo at the bottom, and then I've customized this bit of text here. I've added this to give people, options for how to update their preferences or unsubscribe. This is automatically added by ActiveCampaign when I drag a text box in. So all I did was customize the font. I added some padding, which you can't see here, but there's some padding around this text box. I customized the link color. I did, very little customization, but now I don't have to do this every time I write a new email. So all my emails are going to look the same. So just as a note, I always set up the automation before I add the email content. So I will add emails, even in an automation that's multiple emails, I'll add the emails, name them. But when I get to this stage, I'll just save and exit. And then once the automation is set up, kind of the skeleton is what I call it. Then the last step before I turn the automation on is I go back in and add in the email content into each individual email. So that I can check the formatting, send test emails, make sure the links work, and those kinds of things. All right, we're going to save this for now. So you can see this email is currently a draft here in ActiveCampaign. That's fine. So at this point, minus the start trigger, all you really need to do is send an email and then end the automation. If you weren't using tagging and you weren't using automation to add them to another list, like a master list, like a newsletter list, then all you would need to do next is to add your start trigger and you would be finished. You would want to activate your automation and you would be finished. But we're going to replicate this automation that I showed you earlier. So we're going to add a tag and we're going to add a subscription action. So I usually add the tags at the beginning. It's just a preference. So under contacts, I believe, we're going to add a tag. And then you can add the tag. And these are ones I've already created, so they're auto-populating. Some of them auto-populate. If you didn't have any tags created, you could just type in whatever tag you wanted. So interested in tags are things I use to identify what kind of topics people might want to hear about. You can also use tags that identify what type of customer this is. So if this was a freebie funnel for course creators, then I could tag them as persona course creator or something like that. So you can customize the tags for what makes sense to your business. And that's highly what I recommend you do. So think about, what do I need to know about subscribers? And based on what they've opted in to, what can I reasonably assume about them? Cool. Now we have our interest tag. We're going to add our subscription tag. So under contacts, you can subscribe your subscriber to one or more lists. And I don't recommend you subscribe them to all lists, especially as you become more advanced with your funnels and you have different lists and such. So I'm going to select both of so this is for the instant email ideas. So we're going to assume they're interested in email marketing, and that means they're going to be interested in copy because copy is a part of doing email marketing and funnels, because that's also a part of email marketing. But I'm also going to assume they're interested in systems and ops, because getting email marketing out the door requires managing the work. and figuring out the processes and workflows and such. So I can reasonably assume that they would be interested in both of those. And so I'm just going to apply it and save. All right, now we have our interest tag, we have our email, we have our subscribe to 2 other lists, so to make sure they get on the newsletter list and they get future content. And then all we're going to do is end the automation. Now our final step, once we have the email set up, which we don't at this point, but just for demonstration purposes, we're going to subscribe them. We're going to add a start trigger. When they subscribe to a list, the automation is going to start. So it's going to be a specific list, and this is what I recommend you do for different freebies. So this is for the instant email ideas training. I just select multiple times just in case they opt in the future. And I don't need to segment the contacts because this is for everyone. All right, with the exception of our email, which is currently in a draft, this automation looks the same as this automation. So we have our trigger, we have our tag, we have our email, we have our subscription action, and we have our end action. So once you have your email set up and you've tested that all the links work in the email and there are no typos and such, you can make this automation as active. So it's just as simple as clicking the active button next to the inactive button and making it active. Now I'm going to switch it back to inactive because I don't want people going into this automation that's not set up. And that's it. That's all you need to do to set up the simple freebie funnel automation. One last thing. So in this automation that I'm demoing, there is no next step. There will be eventually, but at the current moment, there is no next step. So what if you did have a next step? What if you wanted to send them into a welcome sequence, or you wanted to send them into a sequence to build trust and promote your webinar, for example? You would add one simple action to the bottom of this automation. So here, before we end this automation, we're going to go into conditions and workflow, and we're going to start an automation. So we're going to add them to another automation. And then from here, you can simply select what automation you're going to add them in. So you need to make sure you have set up, for example, a webinar promo automation. If that's what your next step is, we're going to promote a webinar and you're going to send emails to get them excited to sign up for it. Then you want to set that up and you'll want to connect it to this automation. I don't have one set up right now, but just for kind of demonstration purposes, let's send them into the automated newsletter, which is another demo automation, just to show you what it looks like. All right, and one last thing I would consider adding to this, because we don't have any wait triggers, if we add them to this automation and they get an email right away, then we don't really want that because they've just gotten an email, right? So what we really want to do is we want to wait a day for this to happen. So I'm going to add a wait trigger. We're just going to wait one day. So that makes sense for us. Now we've added a bit of cushion so that they're not going to get like a barrage of emails on the day that they opt in. And so you can see here, they're going to get immediately, once they opt in, they're going to get that email. Then this automation is going to continue until it gets to this point, and then it's going to wait a day, and then it'll continue and add them to the other automation where they can trigger more emails. And that's how you integrate the simple freebie funnel into your larger funnel and connect this subscriber to that next step. And that's it. That's how the simple freebie funnel works on the back end in a email service provider.